Alrighty, what is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the channel for another weekly update. Hope everybody is having a lovely weekend. And with that being said, let's dive into the TA. All right, guys, we got some exciting stuff going on this week. All right, by the end of the video, guys, we're gonna go over the indices, the Mag 7 stocks. I got a bunch of trade ideas going into next week just for you, and I have two that I'm thinking no matter what are going to be popping off. So yeah, stay tuned. All right. SPY, guys, QQQ, the NASDAQ. We did end up closing out with that upper wick that we were looking for to start off the week. We had two scenarios coming into last week. We were either going to start it off with a dump, end it with the pump. Okay, we were looking for it some way, shape, or form. The sellers would be stepping in by the end of the week. All right, so we're either looking for, that immediate pullback, because on Friday, right here heading into the week, we did end up having the gap up. So we could have retested the area. Nope, that's not what the market wanted to do. And our scenario number two was you continue pushing to start the week and you will give it back by end of week. You will have a nice upper wick on that weekly candle. And we did end up doing just that. Now, I am going to say, I do think the markets are going to be heading higher. I think SPY's heading up to $700. But if you guys do just want to rewind the tape back like 1 to 2 weeks, okay, we were saying, hey, 690 to 695 here on SPY, and then we're looking for a price to pull back like it has on 3 of the last $100 psychological levels. We're talking 600, 500, 400. If you go back in the charts, you could see 5 to 10 points beforehand, you had a pullback. That pullback then got bought. Now, all of those vary in different lengths there of how long did that pullback last. But what was common on all of them is they all got bought up to new all-time highs following that. And then you hit that psychological level, which in our case here is $700. Okay. So, I know we didn't get 690, but we did get 689.70. And I'd say that's pretty darn stinking close. All right. So we got the upper wick last week. We got our pullback, okay, that we're looking for. I'm saying I think we're probably going to start the week off with a further pullback. Now, China and U.S., they did come to a deal. Okay, they came to an agreement here. All right, so pretty much the U.S. Okay, great deal, very great deal. Okay, we're going to mess a bunch of things up, and then the deal is going to be us just fixing the things that we messed up. That's what it looks like from my perspective, okay? But nonetheless, I'm just saying there might be euphoria coming in to start off the week. We might get a gap up to start off the week. I'm not really sure, but, I do just want to say, we got these upper wicks on SPY and QQ's weekly candles here. Same thing can be seen on DIA, IWM with the bearish engulfing candlestick. Bearish engulfing candlestick, the last one, it just got bought up. The one before that, it just got bought up. I'm going to tell you, I think we're going to get a bit more of a pullback here as long as, hey, all right, maybe the markets are going to have, that euphoric gap up to start Monday off. We'll see how it goes. Okay, we'll see how it goes. I don't know how the market's going to treat this whole China thing, because at the end of the day, I swear what happened is, oh, we're going to mess you guys up. Oh, we're going to have all these things come into effect. And then the deal is literally just, oh, the things we just announced that are going to go into effect, they're actually not happening anymore. So, how I'm seeing it is everything is exactly the same as it was before. And not exactly the same, but, for the most part, that's what the deal is. So I don't know if the markets are going to get all too euphoric off. I'm really not sure, but it's possible. I just want to point out, when you get similar candles in the past, okay, maybe we're going to get some sideways action that next week. I actually point out over here, NASDAQ, similar scenario over here. This is my ideal scenario. I'm looking for a price to pull back into this area, 613.18. I know that's like a 15-point drop from current price. It's actually an 17 point drop from current price. But, it would make sense to me, okay? It would make sense to me for us to pull back, test the 90 MA down here. Maybe we don't go as far. But, you see over here, after you got that topping tail, you kind of just went sideways for the next 3 weeks. I would not be surprised to see that action. We just got done with the Mag 7 stocks. We'll come over here to the MAGS ETF. All right. The Mag 7 stocks, they reported earnings last week, guys. We started off with, you got Tesla going on, not last week, but the week before that, kicking things off. And this is the only one that I'm going to say doesn't look all that bad. NVIDIA doesn't look bad. Tesla doesn't look bad. But then you come over here, what the heck is that? All right, we know price is likely going to make its way back up to this high eventually. We get this equal high sitting up there. Eventually, it's going to be tested. We don't know when. All right, that's Microsoft. Come over to Meta. What the heck? What the heck is that? All right, it was set up to push all-time highs, and bang, this is how they want to close out your month. So I'm just saying, you know, we could genuinely get some sideways action here. I would just say just avoid trading meta right now. You know, if you got an indicator that tells you when to, you know, leave a stock alone, all right, more power to you. Mine right here is telling me just leave it alone. All right, just leave it alone. Maybe you miss some upside action. It's fine. There are tons of better setups out there. This ain't a setup. There's tons of better charts out there with setups that aren't looking like this. But then, you know, Tesla's really the only Mag 7 stock that I'm seeing right now that looks like, no, we're probably going to still be pushing upwards from here. You just start breaking out of that range, not looking bad on the daily or weekly over here. Okay, monthly is still, you know, we could see it's sitting right underneath all-time highs. I don't really like how that monthly candle printed, but, you know, honestly, it's still probably going to make it up to highs. You know, NVIDIA over here, we know it's probably going to keep pushing there. I'm not sure if they pull you back a little or not. You got the upper wick going on the weekly candle, and over here on the daily, you're still extended. You haven't even tested the 5 EMA yet. So I'm assuming you're either going to, you know, continue pulling back into this area, 195 to, we'll say 195, 198, test the 9 EMA, and then continue pushing, or you're going to get some sideways action. All right. It's one or the other I'm looking for over here on the video. Google. All right, what's going on? Well, you got the big gap up off earnings and you faded most of it. And now you're just pulling back, reverting to the mean, guys. Things don't go straight up. This looks like it's probably still going to grind higher, or we're just going to hit it with that sideways action. You come over here to Amazon. All right, Amazon, new all-time highs, now starting to fade off. Heavy volume there. People are taking their profits. I'm going to point out daily RSI, weekly RSI has not hit overbought territory yet. It's been quite some time. We know that's coming. We know this thing is probably just going to keep trucking higher over time now that it's at new all-time highs. Doesn't tell us what's going to happen in the short term. All right, but like your worst case scenario here is you get this pullback and then you're probably going to get bought up. You know, you just finally made it back up to highs. Look at how the weekly closed above previous all-time highs, 242.52. You know, it's not going to be pretty there on the daily in the short term, but you know, this is probably still going to be trekking up. If we get a pullback here over the next 1 to 2 weeks, expect it to be bought. All right, which is why I say, like, you know, I prefer we get this pullback, get it out of the way, do what makes sense over here, okay? And then we have a bunch of these charts suggesting, yeah, the dip is very likely going to be bought. All right, especially SPY over there. That's, you know, our base case there is shoot close to $700, 5 to 10 points, give us our pullback, and then, you know, within 1 to 2 weeks of that pullback, we're looking for the dip to be bought up to $700 on SPY. Not going to be perfect, you know, it's so far, oh, it's looking pretty. Okay, Apple, okay, you closed out with this nice large upper wick on the weekly candle at fresh highs, and you have this bearish engulfing candlestick. RSI is hinged down from overbought territory. Makes me think we're going to get this sideways action into the moving average. Okay, so, you know, my base case for next week, I'm just making it real clear here at the start of the video. I am thinking this thing is going, like all of these things, the whole market is probably going to begin that sideways action, a slight, you know, more of a pullback. But you got this impulse to move up. You got the gaps followed by a controlled descent back into the moving average. Okay, so, you know, what does that tell you? Bulls are in control, guys. Whether you want to accept it or not, bulls are definitely still in control. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just how it is. Okay, that is how it is. You know, smaller time frames, they show we're kind of just, you know, consolidating, going back and forth here. We could, you know, just be about to start, you know, a larger little sell there on the 4 hour. But if you come down to the daily, or come up, I should say, to the daily, you're just going to be pulling back into your daily 21 if you, you know, lose this area, 678.47, that gap that's in right over there. All right, like if you lose that, you're just retesting where you broke out from. Like, is anybody really going to say that's a bearish thing? It's just not. Objectively speaking, that you are pulling back into the structure you broke out from after an impulsive move in a controlled manner. I just can't, you know, I can't say it's bad. What I will say is, you know, sellers over here, you're seeing an increase in volume. All right, that's not exactly what you want to see. Okay, move up on low volume, move, you know, even though it's that controlled move down I'm just talking about, it's still being done on volume. Okay, so either way, I'm looking for sellers to take the wheel a little bit more and bring you down into this area. That's my base case. If they want to push you up, that's fine. Okay, we're going to $700, but, you know, I'm looking for, yeah, I'm looking for a move down and then a lower wick to be created on the weekly candle. We'll see if we get it. Okay, let's go over some levels here on SPY and QQ. All right, we already went over the Mag 7 stocks, but, you know, just to sum everything up, Mag's ETF here, guys, it's going to test this high again. What you don't know is if it pulls a little, you know, undercuts this low right here, okay, sweeps it, comes back into the daily 21. We don't know. All right, but if it happens, we know, again, objectively speaking, like this is healthy. Okay, this is what you want to see along your uptrends. It's just what you want. All right, that is the exact action you want, is impulsive move up, controlled move back into, into key areas, key spots, keep moving averages. All right, key spot is in where you broke out from. Okay, you just want to see you pull back into support in that controlled manner before heating back up again. That's normally how that goes. Okay. So yeah, all right, let's go over some levels over here on SPY and QQQ. Okay, we'll start off on SPY, guys. On the upside, we're watching 685.94, 689.70. If you take that out, guys, I think you're just gonna, hey, quit this little pullback we're talking about right here. I think we're gonna go straight up to $700. Okay, so above 689.70, we're talking 695 and then 700. That big psych level right there. On the downside, we have 682.06, 678.47, 673.95. Okay, we're gonna leave it at that, because if you lose this area, that's when bad things happen. And your first spot underneath there is gonna be down here at 663.30. Okay, if you want a little spot before then, 667.29. But we'll approach that if it happens. Okay, that's the 21 EMA there. We just lost it, spent all this time, and then we reclaimed it. I doubt we're about to lose it again so quick. It's possible, okay, but it's not probable. All right, so there's your levels there on SPY that you're following along with. Now, QQQ, remember, what we got over here, it would make perfect sense to see some action like that. That's, really, that's my ideal scenario there. That's what would make perfect sense to me. All right, so by default, I'm going to be looking for that, further downside. But I also know they just, announced that China deal, so I'm not... if markets want to push right back up, I'm just going to go with the flow. I got no reason not to. All right, but upside level, we're just going to be watching all-time highs, 637.01. Above there, 640, 645, 650. On the downside, 624.03. That's going to be your weekly low. Underneath there, okay, you have the daily 9 sitting right there. And then if you break this area, we're talking the 618.42 gap that's left open. Underneath there, 613.18. And then, all right, that's where we're going to leave it again, because that's at the 21 EMA. If we take that out, bad things happen. The next spot really is going to be these two levels right down here, 599.74 to 602.87. Okay, you take out this area, you're probably coming down here. And if you come down to the weekly, okay, if you ever take out the 21 EMA, you then, like on the daily, you take, so this is how you go. Okay, you have the daily 9 EMA, you take that out, you watch the daily 21 EMA. You take the daily 21 EMA out, you watch the weekly 9 EMA. If you can't hold that, the next spot by default, there's normally support sitting underneath it. All right, but the next spot by default becomes the weekly 21 EMA. Okay, you have the daily 50 around that spot, pretty much all the time. All right, but straight up, you wait and see how things, just wait to see how the market wants to approach this, and then you can approach it how you could just go with the flow. All right, that's pretty much it. You see what the market wants to do, and then you hop on it with it. Okay, that's just pretty much it. As of right now, you just had this move. Okay, congrats if you made some money this week off this move. But guess what? All right, now we're in that little pullback mode, the little grind sideways mode, and we're going to see, some leaders emerge. Okay, now with that being said, guys, those are the indices. We went over the Mag 7 stocks. Let's check out what's showing the strength into next week, okay? My top watch over here is going to be QS, all right? QS, guys, this looks like a no-brainer. This thing is getting ready to rip. This thing has spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks just basing out above previous base high right over here, 1386. Okay, this is like a 2 to 3 year range going on here. All right, we'll just say right there. Okay, what is that, guys? That's like 3 years. Okay, over 3 years you spent underneath this level right here. Okay, and now you're dragging yourself up above it, and you're basing out over it for 4 to 5 weeks. This thing is about to hit the jets. All right, this monthly chart, it's one I've been talking about for a while, because, we're taking our time over here. We've been talking about like a month and a half now. It's finally looking like this thing it's about to erupt. Okay, you had a decent little move from down here to down here. Okay, down here to up here. That's a 35% move. That's nothing. You ain't seen nothing yet. The thing looks like it is about to go, and above 1907, I assume we're going to push 2021 this week. All right, it's QS. Really loving the look over here. I think you should put it on your radar for this week. Okay, now this is top watch looking chart. This looks great. This is my top trade idea that has a stat behind it. Okay, and I'm just going to say the past 3 years, Okay, 3 years you've had this condition off of earnings met. You've had at least a 12% move on that next day every time for over 3 years now. It's a little bit over, but we're just going to round down and say 3 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, there's one over here where you didn't get it. It would be 16. Let's just excuse this mess over here, and let's just look at the past 3 years of data there, and you have an at least 12% move every single time. Most of them are more. You can see it right here. This is the next day, okay? The last time I called this out, they had us in the first half over here, guys. Price actually came down to like 350, if I'm remembering correctly. This thing tanked, all right? And then by the open, the thing is sitting right where it closed the previous session, and then it had to move intraday. That's your best case scenario, okay? I'm just going to let you know this is how I'm trading, okay? I'm already in it, okay? I'm going to add a little bit more to that right before earnings, but I want to get in a little bit before because it looks like it can push into that earnings date, which is on Wednesday after the close, all right? But this is how I'm trading it, getting in before. Dated contracts, okay? They got some more time on it. If the thing happens to not gap up massively over there, okay? I'm going to take a few weeklies right before as well. But if it does not gap up massively and if it crushes premiums that next day, that is our ideal scenario. You can add calls when they are crushed. Okay, guaranteed they're going to be pricing in this move I speak of. If it happens, though, you get paid. All right. If it just so happens to not gap up, most of these times it does have the big ass gap up, and your ideal scenario is just to cut right off open, just lock in your profits. Okay. But if it does not do that, okay, and it goes something like this, all right, and premiums get killed. I'm talking something that's going for $800 might come down to $100 to $200 if you have that action right there, where you just don't have the overnight gap. We see that. That's right there. I'm telling you, there's your 4 to 5x opportunity for the week. Okay, so I'm going to say QS top chart on the week, APP top trade idea with stats behind the trade idea. Okay, if you want to come trade with me, you can use code APP. That is code APP, this stock right here, all right, for half off of the lifetime. All right, I'm going to be running this up until Wednesday. All right, but 100%, I'm telling you guys, if you take no other trade this week, all right, and you just want to take this trade I'm talking about in APP, I think you're going to have a good time. All right, less could be more. And right here, you have odds clear as day in your favor. Obviously, it could not work out. Okay, but I am showing you for a fact, 3+ years now, your odds are, if you take this trade every single time, it would have hit. Every time. All right, so do whatever you guys want to do. No financial advice on this channel. But here you go. APP. It's looking beautiful. Next one we're going to talk about is JOBY. Joby. All right. Came in. NVIDIA saved the day with their partnership. I'm pretty sure they're going to talk about it on earnings. Now, this is one with earnings this week, so keep that in mind. But it is looking really nice over here on the charts. Okay. And I am assuming they're going to talk about that NVIDIA partnership in the earnings call. And this is going to do some cool things and maybe pop up back to 2021 this week. Okay. And at that point, if we get that, the next leg is just about to start. Okay, so I'm putting it on your radar early on. We've been talking about this one. It's been a little frustrating over the past 2 weeks here, 2-3 weeks. We've been dancing around the moving averages, but now it's got a catalyst, and now the thing is, it's starting to shape up really nice over here. Okay, that's JOBY above 1750. We have 1855, 1998, 2095. CRWD, CrowdStrike. Okay. You didn't get the pullback like I had wanted the past 4, I think it was 4 all-time high breakouts. Yeah, the next week, you got a 3 to 6% pullback from that week's high. We did not get that this week. I was waiting on it to buy it. We got a 2% pullback, and then you rallied. I don't know if you're going to end up getting this kind of day right here. Just look at, you're grinding. Bang, you get these knives just out of nowhere that get bought. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, but I'm definitely watching to see if that happens. I think this is going to keep trekking up, but I will not be surprised to see you continue build this out. And then boom, you get one day where it sweeps the low of the range here, tests the 9 EMA, maybe gets close to the 21. All right, and that's going to be your buying opportunity if you get it for that move up to new highs. If you get that, you could probably buy, you know, down here 530, maybe even lower, and you could take it up above 553.64. That would be a very nice move for you to catch. There you go. Have fun. That's CrowdStrike, CRWD. BE. All right. I gave you guys this one right. Well, I mean, it was right before earnings. So, you know, you would have had to do something right before earnings. But now that earnings is out the way, we do see this thing made its way up to new high. It's now basing above previous all-time highs, 125.75. All right. Weekly candle closed strong on volume. I have to assume this is probably just going to keep seeing these dips bought. All right, as we just saw that one bought up to new highs. All right, this consolidation here, I'm thinking it might go something like this. Okay, so I am going to be watching for this consolidation to continue. Might scoop it up off of the 9 EMA this week. Either way, watch this one for continued upside. It has been a leader, and it's probably going to keep leading. NBIS, I gave you guys this one as one that was standing out last week. All right, I didn't think it mattered how the market was going to be moving with how this weekly candle closed last week. But we had another strong weekly candlestick this week, and I have no reason to assume it's not just going to keep trekking up higher. Okay, I'm looking for a break above 141. I'm looking for the test of 141.10 in the short term, probably this week. Not probably. I'm looking for it this week. But I'm thinking they're probably going to pull you back from right there, consolidate you until earnings. And then I think they probably give you a gap up off of earnings. Okay. But that's NBIS. All right. You got one more week to play it without the juice premiums. You're just breaking up from this little range you got going on. It looks like this thing is probably going to keep grinding up towards that 141.10 level this week. Okay. So that is NBIS, NBIS. TEM. Guys, you have earnings Tuesday. After the bell, this thing has been dormant. Okay, you have, you know, pushed new all-time highs here. You've been consolidating, just been dormant. Okay, the buyers have not been here to drag you higher. They have not, but you definitely have been, you know, compressing over here on the chart right before this big catalyst here, and we're going to see if earnings is going to be the catalyst to push us back up. I'm not telling people to play before earnings, but I am telling you after earnings. If earnings does not make it shit to bed, if it helps it get back up here, premiums, okay, you now don't have to factor earnings into your equation there, okay, and yeah, I think we're going to have a nice trend to fall over here, but yeah, we have to see what happens off of earnings. I don't know what happens yet. The chart definitely stands out beforehand, and as long as earnings doesn't make it shit to bed, I think we're going to have a good time trend TEM over the next few weeks. UBTS and RGTI, okay, quantum. These, if you want to play quantum for this next little leg back up to highs, okay, likely going to push through highs. And, you know, over here at QBTS probably goes $50. It's currently at $37. If you want to play quantum, I'd say RGTI and QBTS are the tickers you want to focus on. All right, these are, you know, I pointed them out a couple times recently here. Throughout this consolidation, it's definitely just holding up. You're basing out, and you're now starting to push up from said base. Over here, RGTI already started breaking up from that base on Friday. And I have to assume it's probably going to be making its way back up to the highs with how we closed last week's candle. You pull back the weekly 9 EMA. This is the first pullback along this whole entire run you've had. All right, and I can't tell you if you make it back up the highs, but it is showing strength in the short term. And yeah, it looks like you want to do it. You want to get back up there, all right? So this is definitely one that was holding up. Was not trading with the market over there this week, and it was just doing its own thing. QBTS and RGTI. I like RGTI better. All right, Hood. This is a no-brainer kind of chart over here. It's going to get back up to this high. I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to wait and see what earnings does to it, though. Ideally, earnings does a whole lot of nothing, and we just get to trade the chart for the chart. All right, without the jacked premiums. That would be cool. But yeah, you know, I'm just going to point this out as a no-brainer. I can't tell you exactly how it's going to go because you do have earnings on Wednesday after the bell. But 100%, you know, take earnings out of the mix. And I'm saying, oh, this thing wants to make it up to the new highs here, and it's going 160 plus. Okay, current price 146.78. If you're not an options trader, it's going to be a lot better for you. Okay. But if you are an options trader, I would just wait until after earnings, and ideally they kill the premiums, and then you could start trading it after, because, yeah, this thing's loading for a breakout. And if we happen to get consolidation this week, yeah, it's getting ready for a move. Two highs. MDB. Okay, we've been talking about this one for a few weeks now. Just saying, you know, the time is coming. It's coming at some point. I can't tell you when it's going to come, but it's coming. Oh, it came. All right, the thing started going this week, guys, above 344.85. You really had nothing until this 370 and 387.19 zone up here. Yeah, it looks like that's where you're gunning it for. Pullbacks, all right, buying opportunities. Okay, you just broke up from a 7 to 8 week range over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, 7 to 8 week range. Broke, you know, that trend line right there, but that's not really what we're here for. Okay, it's the range. Okay, you range, the 9 EMA caught up the price, and now price is breaking out on increasing volume. That's what you want to see. What I will point out is that most of these green weekly candlesticks, they all have lower wicks there. All right, or, you know, some get little gap downs. Okay, so I'm thinking there is going to be a buy the dip opportunity early on in the week over here for MDB. And if we get my ideal scenario where the market just sells maybe Monday through Wednesday, recovers end of week, yeah, that would mean this, if it's going to trade with the market, pulls back into this area, and this is where you want to scoop it up off of 344.85. Okay, and then you can, you know, just use the 21 as your stop if you'd like. Do whatever you want. Again, no financial advice will be given on this channel, but I will gladly share the things that are moving and grooving. All right, and I hope you guys are enjoying the channel. I know there's a lot of returning viewers every video here. Please just remember to leave a like. I greatly appreciate it. But yeah, I really do hope you guys enjoy the content. I try and help people out as much as possible here on this channel. This is my way of doing so. All right, XPEV. Bada bing, bada boom. It held up so well. So well. This thing is definitely not trading with the market right now and is doing whatever the heck it wants to. You got earnings coming up. Okay. I'm not sure if it's going to wait till earnings to make its next move or not, but this clear as day, take earnings out of the mix, and this, oh, it's send up in another pennant just like you had over here, except the larger. And it just looks like this thing is going to freaking explode. I don't know what else to say about it. This thing genuinely looks like it wants to explode. It is a China name. Okay. It is a China EV name. So just know what you're trading there. But yeah, this thing is definitely standing out. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. Monthly and weekly time frames, they're looking sexy, ready to erupt. And I don't know if they're going to do it off of earnings, but 100%, I'm going to be watching this one. I think they're about to hit it with a big 20-30% stick over here. XPEV. Next one, MRVL. Marvel, MRVL. Started breaking up from a range last week, guys. You did not get the daily close above 94.66, but, you know, you see the volume that was done on. This is probably going to start pushing from here, guys. You know, either, you know, it's going to do what MU did over here. All right, and it's going to spend a lot more time in the range. You're going to push the top of it. You're going to reject, and you're going to spend another 3 weeks in the range. All right, then you keep going, or this thing's just going to start going. Which, you know, judging by the weekly time frame over here, no, it looks like this thing is probably just going to keep finding buyers over the coming weeks. You know, you just started pushing out of this consolidation. This pulled back into the weekly moving averages of 921 there. Started popping up to new highs, increasing volume. You know, you have earnings end of November. I don't think it's going to wait on those for a move. I think this thing is probably going to keep trekking higher here. Okay. If you see dips, expect them to be bought. That's MRVL. UMAC. All right. I'm looking for this thing to push up the highs 1748 this week. I'm thinking they're going to do it. You do have earnings on Thursday after the bell, okay? But, you know, take earnings, just like a lot of these other charts I'm sharing, take earnings out of the mix. I just say this thing is targeting new highs. That's what it's getting ready for its move, okay? You got this pushback up above the moving averages, okay? You've been consolidating here for, 5 sessions, a whole week. Probably going to be getting that move next week to the upside, okay? That's UMAC. APLD, okay? APLD is one that for a few weeks now, it's just been consolidating. If you zoom out to the monthly chart, you'll see it's been consolidating right here at previous all-time high. Increasing volume, pushing up there. This is probably going to be continuing, I have to assume. The market, I know it's pulling back right now, and I'm saying it's probably going to pull back start of the week. I would ideally like that to happen, just to be clear. But, you know, APLD, I feel like if that is how the market's going to trade. This will probably just stay in consolidation. And then when the market's good again, you know, if we get that further correction, then you start pushing back up. All right. That's when this would break out and push straight to 40 bucks. All right. You don't have to worry about earnings on this one. Okay. You're just waiting for the consolidation to break above 37.17, brings it up to 40.20. I think above there, you go 45 plus. This thing, yeah, it keeps just making these 5 to 10 point advances. And I think it's, yeah, I think you got another one right around the corner after all this consolidation going on. So, yeah, 45 bucks, 45 to 50 bucks seems like good targets right there. Okay. Break above 37.17, watch for 40.20, above there, 45, and then 50 bucks. Okay. But weekly, all right, very clear. Just consolidating over here. And monthly, it kind of tells the whole story where you're at. Yeah, it's probably going to be pushing up out of this consolidation. Okay. LMND, Lemonade, has earnings on Wednesday before the bell. Consolidating right underneath 62 bucks. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with this one. Okay. Monthly, ready. Weekly, looks ready. Okay. Daily, you're sitting now getting tight in between moving averages and your resistance at 62 bucks. Okay. This looks like this thing's about to explode. I'm assuming it would happen off of earnings. Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's about to explode. This Lemonade, LMND, above 62, we have 66.48, 70, and then 79.54. All the way over here, guys. Like, this is a long time coming. Long time coming. Annette, guys, consolidating underneath previous all-time highs here. Okay, probably just continues building out this little range action right here. Probably gets a resolution by end of week. But either way, yeah, I'm looking for this dip over here in between the moving average and, you know, previous highs here. I'm looking for that to just get tight. And then eventually you see a pop either, you know, this week or next week, but I'm looking for it. It is also very possible this thing just gaps up out of this and all of this information I'm giving you right now is irrelevant. That's a net. All right. So, you know, as far as the earnings trades go, I really would just focus on APP. We know odds are in our favor over there. You might as well just focus on it. But this is a net, ANET. CRWV, guys, it was holding up. It started popping more than others on Friday there. Yeah, it is. It's still the same exact case, but we have earnings coming up actually. The next earnings date is over here on the 10th. This consolidation, guys, this is getting to be a bit much. This is going to have an explosive move out of this area, up or down. You guys all know my bias there. You guys all know I'm looking for that upside. They continue loading, you know, the far out the money strikes. They started coming back in this week. Just thought I'd let you guys know about it. That's CRWV. Open. All right. I'm watching for the move up off of earnings, but if it does move up, I think it's probably going to be off of earnings. So, you know, it's kind of just a hit or miss. It's going to happen or it doesn't over here on open. But yeah, you know, this weekly chart, this is all just controlled. You know, you have impulsive move and then you have the controlled selling over here. I can't tell you if the momentum's going to come back into the mix, but I can tell you, watch for the breakout from this little pattern, okay? This little, you know, wedge action, flag, whatever you want to call it. Watch for the break above 855, okay? If it happens before earnings, they probably will bring you up here at 969. But earnings really is going to be that thing that, yeah, it's a make or break over here, okay? But considering they took the Shopify CEO and put them, you know, in charge of this small fry over here, okay? I assume they're going to talk about some big things on that earnings call. So, yeah, I'm going to be paying attention to it. And so maybe should you. All right. Other than that, guys, I like INTC, I like Path, and I like Dell. All right. We'll start with INTC and Dell. They got these breakouts. And they're just starting to pull back into where they just broke out from. You got the daily moving average going on right here. INTC, that's 39.65 we're pulling back into. If you do make it back up and get through 42.04, all right, you have nothing till 45.41, okay? You have this whole range right here, so I assume it's going to get right through and push the top of the range if you know, get through the bottom of it. That's INTC. Dell, guys, okay, you're so close to all-time highs that I'm pretty positive it's just heading up there. All right. Recently, IBM, we pointed out that one over there. And congrats if you caught QCOM. Freaking congratulations. I don't think anybody saw a 20% spike coming over here intraday. Nobody saw it coming. But congrats. You know, I was kind of pounding the table on those two. And now I'm going to say Dell is kind of giving me those vibes here. I think you're probably going to have a decent day right around the corner over here on Dell. I don't know if they're going to wait for earnings to really get you up to these highs, but I'm pretty sure Dell's just going to keep trucking. But yeah, all right. I'm looking for buyers in this dip that's happening over here. Okay, same case as some of these others I just shared with you. I'm looking for the compression here to continue this week. And then, you know, as things compress, as price compresses in between the moving average and your high there, yeah, and what comes next is going to be that expansion out of this area. And that, I think, just takes straight up the highs. I think we have a day like this, you know, coming. All right, so I'm going to be watching for over here on Dell. And then Path. I stopped myself out just because, you know, decent money and then came back to break even. I got out of this guy, but I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm still watching him and I'm still probably going to hop back in it. This thing over here, you know, I don't know. I might just trade it with shares, you know, but 100%, nothing has really changed other than it's back at the 21 EMA. If buyers are going to step in, it happens right here. You can long right here and just use right here as your stop. Okay, you could long current price 1586, use 1541 as your stop if you'd like. All right. Oh, you risk 3%. And the best case scenario is you catch a 20% rip back up the highs and then catch the next leg up. And all of a sudden you caught, you know, a 30-something% move that you only risk 3% on. So I like where Path is. I just want to say it's not moving right now, but yeah, I'm still thinking nothing has changed here. And this is just more consolidation above, you know, what is this? 2 years? All right, a year and a half long base. Okay, you're basing out now for the third week in a row above it. Okay, what comes next is you probably launch out of this area. All right, can't tell you if it happens next week, but I really like what's going on over here on Path, right where it is. All right, guys, and that's what I have for you guys today. You know, I'm just going to highlight my top watches here just to close out the video, all right, for the week, just so you guys can have a great time, okay, because I know we just went over a lot of tickers there. I'm going to tell you the ones that I think, you know, are best to focus on. QS, it's a no-brainer over here. Look for the breakout above 1907. Look for it to bring you, first of all, $20 cycle level, 21, and then 22, 21. Okay, but yeah, you guys could see when it starts getting these little legs up, you do tend to continue, okay, for a little bit. So I'm looking for a decent move up here. I'm looking for $20 at least. You know, even if this thing just wants to push straight up and then consolidate for the rest of the week, and then it waits to go until next week, I'm at least going to be looking for $20 on this push, okay? You know, this week, all right? That's QS. APP, we spent a decent amount of time going over the trade idea over here. Congrats if you end up taking it with us over here on the last earnings call. So yeah, you just gotta, you know, you gotta wait and see what you're gonna get over here. You could take some beforehand. Just realize it doesn't have to work out. It could be, you know, the first time in, you know, we're 12 earnings reports that's just not the case, okay? But, you know, we have 3 years of data in, you know, in which every single earnings report ended up giving you the spike the next day of at least 12%. You can bank off that, okay? So, you know, data calls beforehand, all right? This is just going to be my move. Data calls, you know, with size beforehand, okay? Add some weeklies day before, okay? And then if premiums, all right, get crushed from price just not having this massive gap up, that's when the real opportunity presents itself, and you just then get another trade, okay? You can keep on what you have because you have stats suggesting that you will begin this move, okay? No financial advice, do whatever you want, okay? But in that case, if you have some time, if you buy near the money, okay, you just make it so the premiums aren't going to get absolutely shat on if that big gap up doesn't happen, okay? They're still going to get crushed a little bit no matter what, okay? But if you have a bit of time, market doesn't just crush them all together. Those weeklies, however, those are what get absolutely demolished. Something going for $800 will come down to $100 to $200. All right, and that's what I'm praying we get that opportunity right there. That's when you really have a nice opportunity to make some money. Okay, but APP. That really is going to be the top trade idea this week. APP and then QS. Okay, and aside from that, I like Joby over here. You do have earnings going on, okay, but I really like Joby. I'm going to be watching TM for that post-earnings move there, all right? And aside from that, all right, UMAC, it's another, we got a bunch of earnings going on, I'm just going to say. But you know, I'd say QS, APP, Joby, okay, JOBY. All right. Hood is a no-brainer, but you're going to need to see, you know, Hood just not rocket off of earnings to really play this guy. Okay. If you want to focus on what had strength last week, QBTS and RGTI, they are starting to push up. They were trading on their own last week. It looks like they're going to be doing well this week. All right. And then I'd say NBIS, NBIS. Okay. Those are my favorite ones. QS, APP, Joby. All right. We're going to say NBIS. And then I'm going to, you know, talk about the other ones, but you have to just wait and see what happens with earnings on these. Okay. Hood looks beautiful. You got to wait and see what happens off earnings. There's not really anything on the bone for you to play before earnings. All right. Unless you, I mean, you still could play it. Okay. I'm just saying you're not going to get anything crazy. Your premiums are going to be jacked over here. And chances are they just kind of hold you down until earnings anyway. All right. So, you know, these other ones I mentioned, they all look very pretty. Okay. But a lot of them do have those earnings that we're just kind of waiting on. You know, Dell is one without earnings. Okay. That, you know, is probably going to be bought on this dip over here. Look for the continued consolidation. And once you see a breakout, watch for that 5 to 10% day. Okay. And that could very well just bring you right up to all-time highs. You catch that move. Like, you don't need a lot of trades. Okay. To make money. Okay, you catch just one of these I'm talking about. You catch just QS, you catch APP, you catch Dell over here, whatever, pick and choose them, okay? But I'm just saying, all right, these are things that are set up and you don't need to catch all of them, okay? These are just your ideas here, all right? I hope you guys do well this week. I hope you guys crush it this week. Again, if you want to come trade with me, the lifetime is going to be half off with code APP, okay? But yeah, with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys fucking crush it next week. And yeah, I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.